At some point, you did GLA, very yeah, I can learn my GLA. Yeah, some practical approach. There are some dream that putting in the saving with having to be definitely responsibility. Things and then you just feel that so you get home. Yeah. Right. Selling. I know. I think that's can we speak English? Yeah. Yeah, but you can already excite the people that people like the yeah, yeah, so I think we need our speakers here and just tell us where to go. I think it's just yeah, we just have it here. Okay. No. Okay. Very unexpected. I had an event. I struggled with the event. Sorry. Right now, yeah, so yeah. Good. I didn't see that. I didn't tell you. There you see. Take it maybe, and we have also an ended mic. So you have to look at the sun. That's what moderator. This week, so I can do it like this. Nice. I guess. Artists. Later, when it's one. So, yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, now it's time. Good. Good. Okay. Okay. Yes, because my hair is giving me quite a time. Okay, I'm gonna hold my hair. Yes, this felt much good. So, it works. Look like this. This.
Yes.
Get a small ear massage, no problem.
I think that's
Just one of the many services that IT provides. Okay, super. And then I can adjust.
hello.
It's still okay. Yeah, it's always like
Like
that.
a insect.
Something bugging you up behind my ears. And
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello. Okay.
yeah, so I have memory.
Great.
Nice.
If you need another one,
Oh, okay.
It's gonna take me a while to get used to this kind of.
Hello.
I've done it a lot of times.
Everyone. Good morning. Okay. 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 Thank you very much. Hello. Hello once again. Good morning. Okay. My name is Gloria Ejare, and I work with Ghana Youth Environmental Movement, but I'm very much honored to be your moderator for today's session. Today we are talking about a very interesting topic, which is so much of interest to me as a young person who also has a strong interest in agriculture and food systems. So I believe it's an important topic for me and for you yourself, because without food, you don't exist. They say water, but without food, trust me, you don't exist. Yeah. So before we dive right in, I just want to give you a little background. Is Brenda here? Hi, Brenda. Thank you for joining us. So if you can see my screen here, today's topic, we are focusing on decent livelihoods for youth in food and agriculture. So everything we are going to talk about here is trying to help us bridge the gaps, help us untie the knots around building a decent livelihood for young people in agriculture. I'll just give you a very short story before we dive into this. So earlier this year, I started an agroforestry project, and it was one of the most challenging things. As a young person who is a woman as well, in a field, a 1 acre land, and then I was trying to negotiate and work with farm hands. I remember one day I woke up very early in the morning. I went into the field. I was there alone. I was waiting for the farm hands to join me. And when I saw the weeds that we had to clear, how to bring the vision to life, I stood and I was like, do I really want to do this? Because thinking about the entire chain, the process involved, the fact that after there will be harvesting and then I need to harvest and get it to the market, do I really want to do this or I want to be in the office? That was what I asked myself. And I asked myself, are young people really ready for this agriculture work? How then do we make it the best place for them to be? How do we present it to them? How do they build a livelihood out of this? So today, I actually found this topic very inspiring for me. I felt it was a step in the right direction. So thanks to the organizers for putting this together. Yeah. So let's quickly dive into the session. Let's know who we have here. We are very much honored here to have the founder of Green Youth, Green Africa Youth Organization, Gaio. And then he's also the director for the Climate Fund, which, yeah, I think it was recently launched, right? Very impressive one. And then we also have Brenda here, who is the director for YPAD, right?
Jenna. Yeah.
Jenna.
Yes, Jenna, sorry, Brenda, you got yourself in my head throughout. So Jenna, I'm really sorry about that.
No.
Yeah, so we also have Jenna here. She'll talk more about what she does and share with us. And then we have Brenda here who also give us a lot of insight on her work and then how she has been contributing in the whole agriculture space. So we'll quickly dive in because we don't have time. It's already 11:21. So I think we'll start with Joshua. Yeah, Joshua has a lot of experience working with young people and working within the space, mobilizing young people to lead climate action. So Joshua, in your experience, what do you think are the key challenges that are being faced by young people in advocating for climate justice within both the agri industry and even the environmental space as well? Because there's a relationship between these two. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much for the question. And yeah, thanks for the organizers putting this together, as you said. I'll probably take this from the Africa perspective a little bit before I talk more broadly. We're looking at a continent that faces food insecurity, and we've seen situations in Madagascar, we've seen it in Uganda, we've seen parts of Kenya, parts of Ghana, food insecurity issues. And then there's another part of nutrition, which also represents a challenge. Young people take a lot of interest in agriculture, and I think that is for two reasons, because the entire continent is really dependent on agriculture in many ways. But the second part is also the easiest thing that you could actually get yourself into. So a lot of people get into that. But then the challenge is to make agriculture very effective and worth pursuing, it requires a certain level of financial capital and policy sort of environment for it to thrive. And I myself am a cocoa farmer. My entire family came out of cocoa farming, and none of my family members really could give themselves a decent life by being cocoa farmers. So even though my brothers and siblings and other cousins are doing that, you're always looking for something else to do, because it's a very common narrative that agriculture is not going to be the activity that would actually emancipate you from poverty. And I think that is the biggest challenge we face on the continent. So you see a lot of young people doing it, and that's positive. But at the same time, they are all trying to get into something else, right? And I think there are two things that need to happen to change that. One of them is we need to really innovate the agricultural sector in a way that is not what is being talked about a lot within the country, which is agricultural revolution. And we talk about it typically in the African context in terms of industrialization. Industrialization is great, but we are living in a continent that is really much smallholder based. And anything that you do that gets industrialized will not deliver benefits to the same young people that we're trying to protect. And I think that the new paradigm we need to start pushing for as young people and with other stakeholders is really how do we unlock capital that protect the culture of the continent and the way we farm, which is every family has a little farm they farm on, they depend on that. And we need to increase activity efficiency within those farms and not bring in a huge company that can take on 100 hectares of land and monopolize that, because that will not only not deliver benefit to people in terms of economic input, but it's also not good for our soils and it's not going to be good for our biodiversity on the continent. Second thing that needs to happen is the linkage between agriculture and education. And that doesn't get talked about a lot. So the typical narrative I hear a lot for young people and the challenges they face in agriculture is that we need to either resource them or we need to give them some sort of training and all that. But we need to be able to really attract people who do not come from an agriculture background to take interest in agriculture. So what Gaio did in Ghana was we run a program called Youth in Agribusiness. And what we did was really to take students who were studying accounting, who were studying commerce, who were studying business management, and really ask them, how can you take your skills in this field and bring it to the agriculture field and really innovate that sector? And I think that is one of the things that we really need to start pushing for, because of course, going to the field is something that a lot of people are doing already. What is missing is how do the smallholder farmers really learn how to manage their businesses better? How do they strike better deals with the supply chain? How do they able to commercialize themselves in a way that they can actually start generating the little things like invoicing to companies so they can actually get a contract? Those are very little skills that are very much underlooked, but adding that little bit to smallholder farmers and to sort of young farmers would really change a lot of things for them. And I think those little things, I think they're not so difficult to do, but yet we are not putting in the investment to do those things. So for me, these are the things I feel are very low-hanging fruits, could easily be done, that we need to invest in. Then the other part is the bigger picture of all the big entities talking about industrializing agriculture in Africa and bringing in all these big corporates to run the show. And I think that would be a very wrong move, because we are a continent of smallholder farmers. We are a continent of really keeping things somewhat informal, but also being able to really catalyze that to increase productivity and benefit to the majority.
Wow. Thank you very much, Josh. I think that was really brilliant. I had a follow-up question, but then you quickly answered all of these.
Okay.
That was very brilliant. So let's go to Jenna. Yeah, Jenna, tell me, your work focuses more on young professionals within the space, the agri space. So what do you think are the most pressing issues within the space? I know Josh has spoken from the African perspective and touched a bit on how, industrialization and all of that is not really the way to go. So what do you also see as the major issues within the space?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And I'm really glad that I'm following your intervention, because I think a lot of the issues that you touched on are what I want to talk about in my intervention, and are things that are really important to us in YPART. If you don't know YPART yet, we are a young professionals network that's all around the world. And in being a network, we do capacity building and we do policy advocacy. Those are our two main areas of work. And that informs what we do to relieve barriers for young people all around the world. And to start out, I really wanted to say that the introduction to this session, the background information, I think touches exactly on the core of the issue, and that it's 2/3 of the world's extreme poor are already engaged in agriculture. And 70% of those people are youth. So we don't have a problem with attracting youth to agriculture. We're already in agriculture, and we know the really, really hard realities, that it can be grueling work, that we don't get labor protections, that social safety nets are really hard to come by. These are big challenges. And so the thing that we are looking to do is to help alleviate some of those challenges. So flipping those barriers into opportunities, of course. And I want to make a little bit of a structural framework, we can think about 4 categories. Of course, the first category that I think we all think of when we think of young people is education. Everyone loves to talk about education for youth, and this is also something that's a low-hanging fruit. If you want to interest someone who's not super interested in youth, let's talk about education, right? What I always want to tell people about education is it's not only about primary education, it's not only about post-secondary education, it's about some of those professional skills that you were also talking about, this vocational training of how do I market myself on a social media platform? How do I write an invoice? How do I make a business plan? How do I apply for credit? These type of issues that we're not learning in agricultural school or technical school if we get the chance to go there. These are super important, and these are things that we're covering in YPARD cafes, for example, where you can learn practical skills and really get your hands in the soil if that's what's needed, or on the Excel sheet if that's what's needed, right? We're also doing internships and fellowships. So we have an agroecology fellowship. So it's about supporting this enabling environment for young people to actually have agency in their food systems, to support this agroecology vision for food systems. The second is access to resources. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky talking with folks, right? Okay, it's talking about access to land, it's talking about access to water, seed. And this can easily get very political very quickly. But this is something that we want to connect our members to knowledge about how to do that and connect them to networks of how do you get access to quality education, good pieces of land, all of this. The third is what we're talking about here at CULP, the enabling environment. Do you have access to good agricultural subsidies, good programs, good implementation, but also good roads to get your products to market, which is usually not seen as agricultural intervention, right? So we're working at YPARD and helping bring young people to the call, for example, so that they can learn about the enabling environment, have their voices heard. And then the fourth is networks. And I think this is really underestimated, the power of networks, because this is what we're doing here right now, right? We're trying to build our networks, we're trying to connect, that we can work on different initiatives together and ask each other, how do I get access to that piece of land? Is that education really quality, or is it just a scam? Power of networks, I think, is key. Of course, we're a network.
Thank you very much, Jenna. I think that's more insightful. I wanted to follow up quickly on you before I go to Brenna. In terms of, you said YPAD is an international organization, so you build all of these capacities and all of that. Let's say in Africa, how do you, try to help these young people bridge the gaps that you have mentioned? How do you do it?
Definitely.
How do you do it?
So
Because you made mention of access to land being one of the challenges,
Mhm.
and it's an international organization. So how then, if let's say there's a young person from Africa who is part of your network, how do you help that person, bridge that gap in Africa?
Yeah. So one thing we do a lot of is peer-to-peer experience sharing and mentorship. So either connecting people with other people in our network who are also young and have had a similar experience so that they can also ask the question that might feel a little bit intimidating to ask someone who's older than you, for example. But then also connecting folks to someone who's more advanced in the field and can offer some more advanced advice as well. These are some specific areas that we do with mentorship, and we actually have a mentorship tool because mentorship doesn't just fall out of the sky either.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Brenda, we are now back to you. You work with young girls, you've been empowering young girls over the past years. Can you share insights on how you do this and how also the private sector can actually collaborate with philanthropic organizations to bridge some of these gaps that our leaders here have mentioned?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So thank you so much. I work with Green Girls Platform. So it's a female-led organization. We work with girls and young women and how they can be actively involved in like the climate space. And at the same time, also I founded Glow Foods. So I grow different types of crops, horticultural crops, in the irrigation and both rain-fed farming. So I can say, like, for young people, really, like as Josh has already said, it's not easy to convince like young people to say they should venture into agriculture because, first of all, in the African context, agriculture is seen like something that's like a layman's job, something that if you're actually venturing into agriculture, then you don't have a future, because we see that as we don't see agriculture as an option. It's layered to find circumstances where, for example, you have like a career day in school and someone say, I want to be a farmer. Everybody wants to be a doctor. Everybody wants to be an engineer, all these cool careers that we see. And at the same time, also, when somebody sees me and I tell them I'm a farmer, it's very difficult to convince people to say I'm a farmer, because I'm not an image of what they expect a farmer should look like. So what I'm trying to do in like the interventions that I'm making is like to change the perception of what farming can actually look like. You don't have to, like, you can be a farmer and actually look cool and actually, make strides out there. Like, we're trying to change the perception where agriculture should be seen as a sexy career, something that someone can actually aspire to. So with Grow Foods and Green Girls platform, we're actually bringing in young people as well as girls and young women, and actually train them to say, in as much as we have like undergraduate qualification, but you can actually venture into agriculture, as Joshua has already said, to say you don't have to actually have studied agriculture to actually venture into agriculture. You can be an accountant. You can actually use that as a platform as well to like, okay, how do you leverage on like the existing experiences and skills that you already have and use that in like agriculture. And at the same time, also right now we are venturing into, we're trying to use agriculture and how can the role of that into environmental protection and environmental conservation. And at the same time, also, there are so many philanthropic organizations and as well as private sectors who are coming in also trying to have young people also on board, like to be investor ready. But how do we make those young people to be investor ready if they don't have the skills and the capacity? Because right now, if you look at agriculture in Africa, people are still using hose to like, cultivate. And then someone is like, has like 2 acres of land and they're looking at like, what comes to their mind is hard work.
Yeah.
It is something that I cannot manage. But then there are so many emerging technologies that are coming out. So how do we prepare them to have like the capacity to say they should be investor ready and to actually think in line with like the emerging technologies that are actually coming up?
Yeah.
So for me, I would really say the philanthropies and private sectors should actually use this as a platform, because you find that on the very same people are actually winning grants out there because they're the ones who are actually have the capacity and the skills. But there's so many young girls and young women out there actually whom we can build their capacity. So we're using Green Girls platform as well as Grow Foods to actually build their capacity so they can be investor ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Brenda. I think during my introduction, I left one person out, who is Kwame Ofori. He will be joining us virtually. So Kwame Ofori is actually the founder of Aqua Foundation. Kwame, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I believe.
Can you hear us, Kwame?
I can hear you. I can hear you very well.
Thank you, firstly, talking.
Yes, we can't hear him.
Can you
So
hear me?
Kwame, if you can hear us while we try to work on our sound, tell us a little bit about Aqua Foundation, and then what specific strategies is Aqua Foundation actually using to provide training for young people and also support young people within the space of agriculture. Tell us a little bit about Aqua Foundation, and then what specific strategies is Aqua Foundation actually using to provide training for young people and also support young people within the space of agriculture. Tell us a little bit of
Yeah, can you hear me?
Foundation actually using to provide within
Hello? Hello.
Hear you. We can definitely hear him. He's talking.
we can hear you.
Okay, so as you've said, Aqua Foundation is an environmental youth organization, advocacy organization in Ghana. One of the things that we've been doing over the years is to change the perception about agriculture, like other colleagues have said. What we saw that in Africa, precisely in Ghana, what we saw that most agriculture or most young people who are into agriculture, even back way in school, agriculture is seen as a punishment. So anytime that you are in school and you've done something which is bad, they will ask you to go to the farm or they will give you
Okay,
a
Kwame,
portion
I
to
don't know
reap.
if you can
It wouldn't be a COP without technical difficulties.
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
great.
Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Oh,
Please, can I?
Is that okay now? Or still you can't
Hi,
hear me?
Kwame.
Yes,
I
can you
think
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so sorry for the hitch-up, but what I was saying is ACO Foundation is an advocacy, youth advocacy organization, environmental advocacy organization based in Ghana. And one of the things that we do is to bring young people precisely in the agri-change sector to dialogue and at the same time find ways that
let's pause him.
Yeah.
Continue here for a little bit. Yeah.
they can bring the gap between agriculture.
Pause. I don't know if you can still hear.
I think he's paused, no? I think he's paused, but the recording is playing.
Let's try and resolve this technical issue. It happens. It happens.
It wouldn't be COP without technical
Okay,
difficulties.
so while we wait, actually, we can still talk. I hope it's not really picking up anything before.
So
Yes,
can I say-
Joshua, I want you to tell us. You spoke more on funding. I realized Jenna spoke about capacity building. She also put more light on capacity building and being investor ready. And you spoke more about the funding aspect, which is very critical in the kind of work we are doing now, especially within the food space. You started, I think you are the director for the Climate Justice Fund. Tell us a bit more about it, and then how can young people actually tap into this initiative or this fund you have?
Oh, thanks. So about 2 years ago at COP26, yeah, some of the youth advisory group members of the Secretary General and a few others, yeah, just thinking about how do we resource young people, how do we move money to young people, particularly those on the front lines. And, there is funding, there's money, there's a lot of resources, but the youth movement really operates from a feeling of scarcity, or there's lack of resources. So there's a lot of competition between different groups here and there. And we thought we would really work on an initiative that can really demonstrate that there is actually access to resources, and we need to transform just how money is moved. So over the course of 2 years, we did a research that showed that only 0.76 of climate philanthropy goes to young people, and majority of that money were going to US-based movement, youth climate movement. And our goal was to really change that narrative and make sure that there's more money that is being committed to young people, but also everywhere. And particularly for young people who are not just using the word climate, but those who are using other words. It could be nutrition, it could be health, it could be education, and all of that have a role to play in climate, which typically they wouldn't get money for. I think that the one of the few things we've learned is that a the way money is moved doesn't really empower those who need to work with the money. So money sometimes have to move through 4 different layers before it gets to the people who actually need to use the money. And with each layer comes with its own challenge. So for instance, if an organization based in the US could write a 2-page proposal and be able to mobilize $500,000. Then they will set up 4 different networks around the world, and they will move, say, $120 to each of those. Those groups then set their own criteria for how they're going to move the money to the actual people who work with that. So you see that those who actually have access to money don't have to go through so much criteria. But then when they're giving it out, they create all these conditions that need to be met, which typically, if you're a frontline farmer, I mean, sometimes the application form itself is not even accessible to you. You don't use the right languages, and you don't get the money. The money doesn't come to you. So when we set up the Youth Climate Justice Fund, these were the things that we're very much aware of. So we opened our applications somewhere in August, early August, and we provided it in 7 different languages. We had regional leads or regional advisors who worked with us to identify groups who were really working on the ground and needed support, and share this application with them so that they could apply. We've set up a participatory grant making process, which means that no one person has the power to decide where the money goes. We've convened a team of different youth climate experts around the world who are working internationally. We've convened regional groups for them to be able to really feed into that decision making. And this year we are going to support 40 groups. We're up to 500,000 USD. We are hoping to do another grant cycle in the next year. I think the goal of our work is really to talk to different philanthropic entities and really encourage them to fund youth movement because they all see financing youth as a risk. And rightfully so, because some people see youth activists as people holding placards and protesting. And it can be associated with arrest, it could be associated with naming and shaming and other things that some philanthropic entities are not comfortable with. So I'll go to really show them the diversity of the youth movement and let them know that there are young professionals in there are students in there are strikers in there are people working on policy like yourself. And all of these groups need funding. And we need to be able to channel money support all these groups in a way that really works. And particularly for those who are really on the front lines and really working on the ground, it's our goal that we are able to really get money closer to them and in a way that they can actually access funding much easier, but also the reporting and all those other things that make it difficult. We really take all those risks away and make it comfortable for them that they're able to have someone who support them. So this is what our philanthropic journey is teaching us, and this is what we are committed to do. And I think that particularly for agriculture, we got 1,800 applications for our first open cycle, and almost about 60% of that had something to do with forestry land use.
Yeah.
The challenge with that, and I'll end very quickly, but the challenge with that is that you having majority of young people doing the hard work, and then you get a consultancy or a nice initiative based in Europe who comes in to do the assessment for carbon markets or to do the assessment for carbon removals that unlock a lot of money. But then the actual person who is doing the hard work to actually sequestrate carbon or to build carbon sinks get so little of that money because a lot of that goes into the fees of even the person flying in to come and do that. And we had a project that needed to get assessed for carbon credit, and the fee was 50,000 USD for the person to just come to Ghana to do that assessment. And this is a smallholder farmer, impossible. But once that assessment is done, it unlocks more money that the consultant themselves will get, and the farmer will still get very little. So these are the inequalities and sort of injustices that exist around the global finance sort of money that is coming into, like the work that we do with forestry, agroforestry, and carbon sinks that we need to really start talking about very boldly and really challenging the narrative on that.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to tap into the next open call, where should we look out for it?
If you just put in ycjf.org, it's very easy. You just type Youth Climate Justice Fund, you're gonna see it. We have a very cool website which I like. It's very funky and youthful and nice. And also do reach out because I think one of our work is to actually fundraise and raise grants and give money to people.
Yeah.
But another part of our work is to actually help groups that already have a little bit established and actually support them to fundraise directly. Because we cannot, of course, fund everyone and everybody. But what we can definitely do is to challenge philanthropic entities to give more money to youth and build capacity of youth organizations on how to fundraise.
Awesome. Brilliant. I think we should clap for them. Yeah. And let's hear from, I really want to be fair. Kwame, if you can briefly, sorry we have to put you on the spot, but just like a minute, tell us briefly what ACO Foundation has been doing over the past years and how you are really helping young people within the space or your capacity. Briefly, sorry we have to put you on the spot, but just
Don't worry. I believe you can hear me now. Is that okay? Or still the line is bad? Can you hear me? Hello. That's too bad. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity, and I'm sorry for the HUP. What ACO Foundation does is, ACO Foundation is an environmental advocacy organization, and what we believe in is to nurture young people and to make sure that they get the right tools for what they do. So way back, we saw that even in school, when young people are even
very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's just unfortunate this may not work for us. So we'll quickly dive into another phase of this side event. Okay, yeah. So Kwame, apparently you can use the chat box to tell us briefly so that our online community members can also follow through with what you do and how you are contributing within the space. Yes, we want to move away from our panel because they have made significant inputs into the work we do. Right now, I'm really convinced as to where to go for funds, first off. And then also in terms of capacity building, of course, I would want to work with an international organization that can build my capacity within certain frameworks. Investment, very, very important. So I'm sure you've gotten some key takeaway from all of these young leaders who are doing great exploits here. I want to invite Laurel. Laurel, are you ready? Oh, you are. Oh, what was I thinking? So nice. Laurel is coming to talk to us about an interesting tool. I think yesterday Margaret was even sharing with me a bit about it. I want you to come here. Thank you very much, our panelists. Well, let's clap for them. I think they've done brilliantly well. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Joshua. You're doing amazing. Thank you, Brenda. You're doing so well. Sorry. Q&A? Oh, okay. Because of time, but you can leave like 2 questions. We will come to it. We'll really address it. So, Laurel, I want you to confidently take the stage, or you may want to stand. I don't know how you'll be doing this. But take us through this tool you have developed, the climate justice map, right? Yeah, very interesting tool. Take us through that, and yeah, we'll leave our questions. Am I blocking your view?
Hello, everyone. At least I'm audible. So, thank you so much for the moderator for a wonderful session, and to all the speakers and everyone who is in the room, Gaio, and my team at the CJJT, Leah and Kat. Thank you so much. So, my name is Laurel. I am coming from Tanzania. I am a climate justice consultant at the Climate Justice MAP. The Climate Justice Map is an interactive tool that is actually developed by the Climate Justice Just Transition Donor Collaborative, an international organization. So it was developed to actually map organizations that are based in the global south, because those have historically received the least amount of funding. The youth climate study has shown that these people do not have access to these funds, and they actually do a great work on the field. So the climate justice map is actually there to make sure there is a shift of power, resources, capacity building to these organizations. So the map is very visible, and as I said, we have mapped so many organizations, those that are based in the global south, and we have 270 plus key themes, and we have tried to use the themes that organizations define themselves. There are so many themes that we have in the map. We have we have themes like agroecology, we have awareness rising, environment justice, food, health, gender, and those are some of the themes that organizations have defined themselves in the field. So we have used a wiki to yeah, so actually before can you go to the previous slide? So actually the climate justice map is also developed by the Climate Jedi Fellowship. Jedi stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So we had 12 fellows, activists who have actually helped developing the map, but we also have partners like the Climate Cardinals, who were the guru translating. As we know, one of the major injustices in the climate justice movement is lack of accessibility, as much resources are only available in English. And we also have partners like Gaio, and I'm so happy we have so many of you here. We have the Southern African Trust, the Southern African Youth Forum, and yeah, we are so thankful. Yes, to the other slide, please. So actually, this is the main page, and it is a wiki. And why a wiki? Because it's actually easy to use, and it's very friendly and collaborative, and it's open for anybody who would want to use it. We don't want to keep the informations for ourselves only, and so that's why we selected to use a wiki. So in the wiki you can do navigation. Yeah. So actually on the left side, we have a navigation tool, and the first takes you to the climate justice map, where you will see the map and the interactive map. And then we have the climate justice map database, and it will show you a list of organizations and numbers that we have mapped already. And the other one is the CJ map regions. We'll see different regions like Africa, the Latin America, Caribbean, Pacific, and that's a random page. And the other very important is how to contribute to the climate justice map. We have a place of adding an organization. If your organization is not yet in the climate justice map, you can just nominate yourself. We have a simple Google form for doing so. And the other one is request training. We really are happy to be able to do a training of a number of people virtually and even physically. And I'm now doing it here. So how to use the climate justice map. So yes, how to use the climate justice map. Um, you can use the toggles on the top left corner to actually zoom in and out, the plus and the minus. You can zoom in and out to access the climate justice map. And as you see, we have marker clusters in different colors. We have red, we have blue, and we have yellow. So actually, red represents 100 plus organizations mapped together in one region. 17 marks 10 to 9 organizations mapped together, and 2 to 9 is represented by the blue marker cluster. Next slide, please. So actually, we have the location pins, and once you press on a location pin, it will take you to an organization itself. And as you can see, we have a demo of the Green Africa Youth Organization. So it will show you the organization name, title, the organization type. For instance, Gaio is an NGO and it's a youth-led location. And Gaio is located in Ghana, we all know, but the effects are felt all over Africa and beyond. Okay, so in current focus, what are they focusing? So it's easy for, let's say, a funder or a partner to actually search and get to know who are these people and what are they doing? How can I mingle? So how to use the database? Next slide, please. So this is how we have placed our database, and we have a very searchable database. You can search of different key themes. As I said, we have tried to map so many organizations doing so many things, and we have several key themes. For instance, with food sovereignty, right now we're just from hearing from a panel on food and how young people could engage meaningfully. So we have 177 organizations that are actually working in the field of food sovereignty. We have 117 in food security, and agroecology we have 57. So actually this is how you can see there are so many organizations that are working in that sector. And you can also search by a country. Yeah, so in the database you can also search by country. You can search Ghana, or you can search Tanzania, and it will show you a list of organizations that we have mapped in that region. So yes, so you can search, I said you can search by region, and you can also search by a country. For instance, if you search Tanzania, you will see we have mapped 59 organizations currently. And I'm so happy that we have Climate Hub Tanzania mapped already. We have, can you go back? We also have Call for Environment Conservation Organization by Opendo, and she's here. You just give a wave. Our organization is also mapped in the climate justice map. And yeah, so it will give you organizations by list, and it's easy to to, okay, for instance, you go to Climate Hub Tanzania, you will see what we do. You will see our organization's information is translated in all 4 languages: English, Spanish, Arabic, and French. You also see the organization link to the website. Oh, somebody is real quick. You see, so you'll have the organization link. It will take you to what we do, our website, and yes, our country and our current focus. Yes, please. So yeah, so you see we have translated in all languages. So finally, how to contribute to the climate justice map. As I said before, this is a very wonderful tool and connects so many climate organizations and also those that are working in the field of philanthropy. So you can just add your organization by actually filling this form. It's actually very short. It takes you only 2 minutes and actually very friendly. Right now, you can actually just scan the QR code in the screen, and it will take you to the Google form to actually nominate your organization. And once you're done, we'll just do the rest of the work for you. It's actually a tidy work, but we'll get back to you within 2 weeks, and we will write to you an email that your organization is already registered in the climate justice map.
Amazing.
And thank you so much. Yeah. So if you want to nominate on behalf of an organization or you have multiple organizations, then you just need to email us directly at cjmap at climatejusticcollab.org, and we will take you through. It's a bit of tidy work, Leah will tell you that, but we want to make sure your organization is also included. So we'll take you through how to do it. And yes, I hope you are all ready to use the climate justice map. And this is just an acknowledgement and thanks to the CJJ team. And we are 3 of us here, Leah and Farhana, if you just wave, and all every organization, Gaio, and everyone who is in the room. We thank you so much. And you can access the training package here, everything that I just presented here and more through scanning the QR code on the screen. But also, please don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. We are there as the Climate Justice Map, and we'll be sure to follow you back. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much, L'Oreal. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Please, before you go, I just want you to leave us with what inspired this whole map? I think I didn't get that from your presentation. What
Okay.
inspired it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So, what actually inspired the climate justice map project is that there has been a tendency of very low or little fraction or little amount of funding reaching to organizations that are based in the global south. And one of the reason is that these people are actually working in grassroots levels, and they don't have access to platforms like this, or they don't go to international places attending such meetings to meet funders. So the climate justice map is actually to bring all these people together, those that are working in the field of climate justice and just transition, but funders as well. It's easy for a funder to actually search for any organization in the climate justice map.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much,
much.
Gloria, and thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
So, I mean, from what she said, if you want to be identified by a funder or a donor and all of that, please, you need to be on that map as soon as possible. So if your organization, I think my organization is not on the map, I'm not sure. I'll check. It's there. Oh, great. So yeah, that would be a good opportunity for you to jump on that and register the organization or nominate an organization to be on the platform as well. Thank you very much, Laurel. I think before we close, I want to take a remark from our panelists because they gave out some really good pointers. Maybe their final words. I don't know. Would you want to nominate one person to speak on your behalf? Or, yeah, we have questions too. The questions are really good. Okay, so while they try to find someone to speak for them, the three amazing panelists, I think we'll open up for one or two. Okay, Margaret.
Hi, my name is Ifa. I work with the Youth Climate Council Ghana. Um, I wanted to ask that Karine, is it Karine? And link it to what Josh was saying. He said that people are still using hoes and cutlasses in their farms, and there's a
Brenda.
need to scale up. Brenda. Yeah. And Josh also mentioned that like big industrializing of the African agriculture setting is not a way to go. So how do we effectively eliminate using cutlasses and bring in maybe tractors and still work um in a smallholder farms? How can we link those two? Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question.
Thank you very much. Can I go?
Yeah, go. I
Okay.
think that's the first
Yeah,
question.
I'm Margaret Imprim with Green and Great Organization. So, in a typical setting where there's inflation, most people would be discouraged to grow food crops and rather grow cash crops because those are the ones that have maybe more money coming into it, or there will not be inflation catching it because there's always demand. It has brought a lot of issues on our food security because people now do not want to even grow tomatoes or something that we need for our homes. How do you or have there been some systems that kind of encourage the youth to not just buy farm for cash crops or not buy farms for crops for exports, but would buy land that will grow food crops, because when there's inflation, it affects the cost and they run at a loss. And that's very discouraging. So how do you bring people like that into the system for them to have such decent livelihoods and still make enough food for everyone?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all. Our technical issues made us delay, so you should pardon us. The first question.
Yeah. So how do you bridge not industrializing at the same time increasing productivity and efficiency? I think you need to look at every country, continent, culture, and look at innovations that come out of that. If you look at the African culture and as a continent, an innovation like mobile money, this would have never worked in Europe. No way. That you tell an European that they could do all transactions, everything from their phone, with no banks, with no security, everything from their phone. That innovation wouldn't have worked. It is the biggest market in Africa now for transactions, right? So when you think of agriculture, there are innovations like tractor, which is like literally making tractors available like an Uber, which means that a farmer doesn't have to invest so much in buying a tractor, which you use few times across the season. Why do you owe the whole tractor when you need it for, I don't know, once a week or twice a week? It's a huge capital which you need to buy that. That only works when you have several acres of land that you work with, which means that in our context, you will need to invest in solutions that mimic the culture, which is sharing. So you have the infrastructure, you have the equipment, you have the tools, but people don't need to own it within themselves. It has to be like a centralized system where you use it when you need it. And then you are able to really have that productivity that comes with the size of your land and what you need. But the idea that we could actually bring in huge companies, come with all these machines, take over all the lands, use and make us employees, hell no. That shouldn't be the case.
All right, awesome. The second question, Jenna, do you want to take it? From Margaret.
Yes, I think it's quite related actually to the first question. Say, how do we avoid only doing cash crops? And maybe it's not to persuade people from not doing cash crops at all, but it's to diversify. So maybe I do a little bit of cash crops because I can see the income coming and I need that cash flow. I need to be liquid. But then also going from the perspective of food security and also food sovereignty to say, but also if you grow some of the food that you need, you can also buffer some of the effects of inflation.
Yeah.
Because you have the food, you don't have to buy it then. So I think those can be really persuasive arguments, and you can kind of meet people in the middle in a type of compromise situation.
Yeah.
Instead of moving someone completely from cash crops to completely self-production.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually the answer. An example is agroforestry. So you have like dynamic agroforestry where they have cocoa, which are cash crops on the land, and then the farmers are farming in between the trees that produce, the cash crops, and then also having their normal crops for feed in and to sell and to make income. So that's basically about it. Thank you all so much for joining today's session. Those online, thank you very much for joining us. Kwame, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that from here, you know where to get your resources, where to tap into the resources available. And then we look forward to doing more with young people within the agri space. Thank you once again. And my name is Jade. Thank you.